It is one of the strangest paradoxes in rock and roll history. How does a band release a massive commercial hit, sell out arenas across the country, and yet feel like they're attending their own funeral? So today we're going to look at the moment a legendary rock band stopped being a band and morphed into a musical theater troupe. We're talking about Styx, the Kilroy Was Here album, and how the shadow of Mr. Roboto completely fractured the foundation of the group. We're going to look at how the creative overreach and a massive culture clash behind the scenes led directly to the end of a dynasty. So if you were around in 1983, you couldn't escape it. I mean, Mr. Roboto was everywhere. It was a massive hit on the radio. The video was in heavy rotation on MTV, and the album Kilroy Was Here, it was flying off the shelves. But on paper, it looked like Styx was on top of the world. But behind the curtain, that album was truly a death knell for the band. So to understand why, you really have to go back and look at what Styx built in the late 70s and early 80s. With albums like The Grand Illusion and Pieces of Eight, they'd cemented themselves as one of America's biggest arena rock bands with a real progressive streak. They had a distinct logo, like the one on my shirt, a massive core audience, and a reputation for putting on an incredible live rock show. But here's the detail that matters. Their previous 4 albums had all gone multi-platinum. Now, Kilroy Was Here would break that streak, stalling at a single million copies. That's a platinum record, sure, but for Styx, that was a step down. And the first crack in their armor, because with Kilroy, the identity shifted. The fans grew up listening to dueling guitars on Renegade and Blue Collar Man. They were certainly starting to look at a band that felt more like a Broadway production. And this is something a lot of you guys bring up in the comments when we talk about legacy bands. That exact moment when they jump the shark and a rock group loses its edge and starts feeling like a gimmick. Mr. Roboto might have brought in a new, younger pop audience, but to the guys in the band who just wanted to plug in and play, it felt like they were selling out their roots. And here's the kicker. Mr. Roboto itself, Dennis DeYoung didn't even want to write it to be a single. He wrote it as a transition piece to the bridge to the opening film in the live show each night. It was the record company's test marketing that turned it into the smash hit. So that song came to define this whole era and alienate half the fan base. It was basically almost an accident. So this brings us to the core fracture of Styx. Every great band has internal tension, but what happened here was a complete hijacking of the band's creative direction. So you have essentially had 2 warring camps. On one side, you had Dennis DeYoung. Now, Dennis was a brilliant songwriter. He was a true visionary in the band, but his passions, they were leaning heavily towards like a more theatrical and concept albums with a Broadway style of storytelling. And then on the other side of the band, you had James J.Y. Young and Tommy Shaw. These guys were essentially just rock musicians. They were fantastic and still are. But when you play electric guitar for a living, you want to stand on a stage and you want to feel the amps pushing the air behind you and connect with the crowd through the sheer power of the music. You don't want to be an actor in a play. Now, to be fair, this didn't come out of nowhere. The band's move through the theatrical end of things had actually started 2 years earlier with the album Paradise Theater back in 1981. That was also a concept-driven cinematic record that went all the way to #1. So that's the success that gave Dennis DeYoung the leverage and the confidence to push this kind of concept even harder. And with Kilroy, his vision completely took over. The concept was basically this. It was a dystopian future where rock and roll is outlawed, and this was Dennis's brainchild. Because of the past success with ballads like Babe and the #1 run that Paradise Theater had, he had the muscle to force this massive theatrical concept forward. For Tommy and JY, it turned them into creative hostages, essentially. They were no longer equal partners building a rock record. They were backing musicians, reluctant actors executing Dennis's script. The compromise that they had was gone. When one member's ambition forces the rest of the band to abandon what they actually do best, resentment builds pretty fast. And all of this internal tension completely boiled over when it was time to take the album on the road for the 1983 tour. So if you bought tickets to see Styx that year, you didn't get a rock concert right out of the gate. So the show started with roughly about a 10-minute short film that was projected onto a screen, and that featured the band members acting out the Kilroy storyline. Dennis played the hero, Kilroy, whose full name was Robert Orrin Charles Kilroy, whose initials spelled out R-O-C-K, rock. Now, Tommy Shaw was cast as the rebellious young rock star named Jonathan Chance. Then at the end of this roughly 10-minute video, Kilroy pulls off his robot mask, the screen lifts, and the band picks up the story live on stage, having to physically act out the scene before they even settle into playing. Let's be brutally honest. Rock and roll is about authenticity. The fans know when something is crap and bullshit and being forced down their throat. Watching rock legends awkwardly deliver memorized dialogue and wear robot masks was, for lack of a better word, cringe-inducing. Tommy Shaw, for one, he hated it. He was a guitar player from Montgomery, Alabama. He just wanted to play rock and roll. He was out there feeling ridiculous every single night. And the fans, they felt it too. Well, the tour, it did well. It sold tickets. It alienated that hardcore fan base. The energy in the arenas was kind of strange. People didn't know whether to cheer and stand up or sit down and watch the play. And the band was visibly uncomfortable. That lack of authenticity, it bled right into the music. I mean, you can only sustain that kind of pressure for so long before the entire machine breaks down. Now, the stress of the Kilroy project, the acting, the internal fighting, the total departure from their rock roots, that was the breaking point. The tour was exhausting, not just physically, but mentally. It just wasn't fun anymore. That brotherhood that Styx had built together, that band was gone. It was replaced by a rigid script and a production that left zero room for spontaneity. And there was one night on the tour when it all came pouring out. It was at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. Tommy Shaw, he finally snapped. And he snapped on stage. I mean, out of pure frustration with the theatrical kind of straitjacket and the direction of the band, he smashed his guitar into pieces, and then he hurled those pieces into the audience and he stormed off. That was the moment the mask came off, so to speak. So shortly after the tour wrapped up, he walked away for good. He quit Styx. He went on to launch his solo career where he could just go back to writing songs and being a rock musician. He released his debut album, Girls with Guns, in 1984. But Styx without Tommy, that dynamic, it was dead. I mean, Styx was one of the biggest bands of the decade. And they went on an indefinite hiatus in 1984. With Dennis DeYoung and JY Young drifting off into solo projects. As a group, they wouldn't release another album together for years, and when they did in 1990, it was without Tommy Shaw. So this is the ultimate proof that commercial success does not equal a healthy band. Kilroy Was Here gave Styx their most recognizable pop culture moment, but it was the exact thing that killed their chemistry instead. They sacrificed their authenticity, I should say, for a theatrical concept, and it cost them their band. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you see the tour in '83 on that Kilroy Was Here album? Did you love that concept? Did you hate seeing them step away from their more traditional hard rock sound? I personally had a chance to see them back in Orlando, back on that tour, but I passed it up because I just was not interested in the whole Kilroy Broadway show dramatics. I mean, cringeworthy indeed, for sure. If you appreciate these kind of deep dives, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you want more stories about the decisions that permanently altered the history of rock bands, please check out my new book. It's called Near Miss, The Alternative History of Rock's Greatest Personnel Decisions. It's available right now on Amazon, and the link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.